Hey, it's Jerry Norton here. When rehabbing a house, there are three factors that you must consider. First is the quality of the work being done. Second is the speed in which you get the work done. And the third one is the budget or pricing to get the work done. And all three of those things have to work together. And your ability to be successful rehabbing is dependent on how well you manage those steps in that process. So in this video, I'm going to break down the 5 ways to manage your rehab from least effective to most effective and help you decide which one you should be doing. All of that and more coming up.
The Real Estate Funding Kit is out now. Learn how to get 100% funding for all your deals without dealing with the banks. Claim your free copy at myfundingkit.com.
Now, I've been rehabbing houses for 20 plus years, and out of the hundreds and now thousands of rehabs I've done, I've identified that there are 10 tasks that need done on every single rehab. The first thing we want to look at is our design. Now, design is just simply, what are we going to do on this rehab? Are we rehabbing this for a rental property? Is this going to be a fix and flip? What level of rehab do I want to do? And there is no right or wrong answer here. It's just you need to get clear. First thing up front is, what is the design of this project? Once you have your design down or what you want to do to the project, the second thing is your scope of work. You have to outline or detail all the different things that you want done. Now, there are 2 different ways you can do this. You can do it by trade or by work performed, or you can do it by room. So for example, you could go into the kitchen and say, okay, we're going to demo the existing cabinets. We are going to put down new flooring. We are going to do new cabinets. We're going to do new countertops. We're going to do appliances. And so you outline a list of everything in the kitchen that's going to be done. Then you can go to the bathroom. Then you can go to bedroom 1, bedroom 2, bedroom 3, living room. That's one way to do it. The challenge with that method is some contractors might be in multiple rooms, right? So flooring is going to be in all the rooms. So another way to do it is by trade or by work performed, by specialty. So then you could go through the whole house and say, okay, let's nail down painting, exactly everything that we want to paint, everything that we want to do floors, everything that we want to do cabinets. So not just kitchen cabinets, bathroom cabinets, all of the electrical. So everywhere that we're doing new electrical, new lights, whatever it may be. And so then you can break it down, your scope of work, that way. The scope of work, though, for the rest of the rehab to go well, it has to be extremely detailed. Like, I want to make a list of every last thing. If I'm talking about cabinets, I'm talking about knobs, right? I'm talking about the shelves, all of it. Is there a piece of trim that needs to go on here? Whatever it is, you want to be as detailed as possible. The more thorough you are, then the better you are able to do the next tasks in the project. Which that brings us to number 3. Once you've got a very detailed scope of work, then it's time to get bids. And bids just means you're going to take that scope of work and you're going to have contractors bid on that work. Now, one quick tip here is I like to hire specialty contractors. I try to stay away from a jack of all trades, a handyman, if you will, because they're going to be okay at a lot of things, but not really good at one thing. And they're going to slow down your timeline because they can only do one thing at a time. Rather, I'd like to bring in 15 different subs. I want a gutter guy that all they do is gutters. I want a tile guy that all he does is tile. I want a painter where all he does is paint. He doesn't also do drywall and landscaping and whatever. So that way I can get very narrowed down, very specific bids based on my scope of work. Okay, so that's getting bids. I recommend getting 3 to 6 bids. Now, this is a lot of upfront work to get multiple bids, but this is huge. The better you are and the more time you take getting bids, the more you get your head around what the real price should be. Because you're going to have outliers, maybe somebody really high, maybe somebody super low. But if you get 4, 5, 6 bids, you should find the middle, right? You should find a cluster of pricing that's going to give you a really good idea of where you should be at. You don't just take the highest bid. You don't just take the lowest bid. You want to find where the right price is for the market. Now, I'm out here in Montana right now at my lake house. When I do projects out here, it's way more expensive to hire Montana contractors than it is, let's say, in Phoenix. In fact, I could bring Phoenix contractors to Montana, pay for their time, their travel, hotel, a food expense, all of that, and still come in 40% lower than I can hiring Montana contractors. It's just the labor market. It's bigger there than here. So, I got to be thinking that way when it comes time to getting bids. So I'm going to spend the upfront time to get bids to make sure that I get the real numbers I want to pay. Okay, so I'm going to get the bids. Then what I got to do is I got to finalize my budget. Now I know all the numbers on every aspect of my rehab. And so now I can recreate a new budget. We usually have a preliminary budget when we buy a property or when we estimate repairs to do a deal, but you don't actually know the real budget until you get hard bids. So that's when we're going to finalize our budget. We're going to bring all the pieces together, and we might have to adjust there. We might have to say, you know what, maybe we go with cheaper doors. Maybe we keep the existing base instead of new base and we just paint it. You're going to have to make adjustments based on where your final budget comes in. So once you get your final budget, step 5 is then going to be to hire your contractors. You're going to choose the contractors that you want to hire. I actually did a video where I break down 8 requirements that I look for when hiring a contractor. And it's really good because it's all the things that you want to be looking for in a contractor so that you have a successful project. Hire the wrong contractor, you have a nightmare on your hands. Hire the right contractor and you have a smooth project on your hands. All right, so I'll put the link to that video in the description. I highly recommend you watch that when choosing your contractors. So after you choose your contractors and they sign a contract, I get a contract from my contractors. I'll give you my contract that I use with my contractors for free. I'll put that link in the description as well, and you can use that. So once we hire our contractors, the next thing we need to do is create our timeline. Now, you may need your contractors to help you create your timeline. I often do. But what this means is it means I need to know who comes in first, how long they're going to take, and then who comes in next, how long they're going to take. I want to have as many contractors at the same time as I can without redoing work or stepping over each other. That's sometimes tricky, but I want to think through my timeline so that we can get this project done as quickly as feasibly possible. Time is money. Every day I'm in this project longer, it's costing me money. And so I need to be able to create a very detailed timeline, and I need to help my contractors understand that timeline. Okay, so that's where number 7 comes in, scheduling. Once I've got my timeline narrowed down, I need to schedule all of the contractors I hired and make sure that they know when they're supposed to come in. Now, usually your timeline is a rolling timeline because it's very difficult to keep the timeline exactly how you want to because it's rehabbing, right? Things come up, there's delays, weather, materials, whatever, contractors don't get done on time, things like that. But your timeline needs to be continually rolling and your scheduling needs to be way ahead of the work before it comes out there. So if I've got in my timeline that the electrician comes in 2 weeks and there's a 1-day delay and he needs to start in 2 weeks and 1 day, I need to keep him totally on board with his schedule. If I don't, then he's going to be busy, and then when I need him, he's not there, and it throws off the rest of the project. So managing and scheduling that timeline is huge to have a successful project. Number 8 is quality control. Once people come in there and they start doing work, you got to be right on top of if that work's being done right. You want to identify if you have a contractor that's not doing high quality work immediately, not after they're done and you realize, oh crap, my tile looks crooked and is wrong and it all needs redone, rip it out. You don't want to be finding that out too late. So managing the quality control of your project is a really important thing. Instantly, when you see something not right, you need to address that. Maybe it's they need to redo it. Maybe you need a different contractor, but you want to be identifying that very quickly as soon as possible. Number 9 is draws. This is a task that is very time consuming often because you're going to be paying your different subcontractors that are in there doing the work. How do you manage those draws? When do they get the draws? Have they qualified for the draws? That is an entire video in and of itself. I have a very specific way that I handle draws with contractors. I never want to be upside down where I've paid them more than the work that they've performed up until that point. I've got a video where I talk a lot about that. If you do that wrong and you get upside down, contractor runs the job. You have to always be running the job, meaning they're doing work, getting paid for work completed, and you're always ahead of the contractor. And then the last one, number 10, is the punch list. Now, the punch list on every rehab is often the trickiest part. It's often the most difficult part. It's the hardest contractor to find is a punch list contractor. Contractors love to do 90% of the work. You get an instant sense of accomplishment when you frame a house, when you put on a roof, right? When you build a deck, when you paint an entire house. What nobody wants to do is the tiny little details to make it look perfect. Nobody likes to do that. Now, I do everything in my power to hold every contractor accountable meaning they don't get their final payment until it's 100% complete. But no matter how tight you manage that, there's always going to be a list of things that need done at the very end. So you've got to be able to create that super detailed list. What I do is I bring in a third-party punch list specialist, and I give him this big laundry list of things, tiny little things like the door's rubbing and needs adjusted, there's a screw loose on the railing, whatever. Very detailed stuff a really good punch list contractor specializes in. And I usually budget, $1,000, $1,500 on every project just for the punch list. That punch list can turn into $5,000 if you don't manage all your subs correctly and make sure that they're getting as close to 100% of their scope done as possible. Okay, now let's talk about what we do to get all of this done on a project. And here's the thing I want you to think about. The more effective you are at managing a rehab, the more rehabs you can do in any given time. So let's think about it this way. This is the way that I want you to put this in your mind is if I want to rehab houses to flip, if I manage that process on rehabs less effectively than I could, and I only can do 3 projects in a year, 3 rehabs in a year, based on my ability to manage the project, get it completed, get it sold, buy another one, right? So if my bandwidth for rehabbing is limited to 3 a year, and I can make $30,000 on a rehab, then my max income rehabbing is 3 a year or $90,000 in profit. Okay, now if I can increase my effectiveness to manage rehabs, assuming I can find more deals, but if I can increase that and double my effectiveness and do 6 rehabs in a year in the same given amount of time working, then I just doubled my revenue simply by becoming more efficient, more effective at managing the process. This is why this is so important when it comes to management. It's one thing to figure out all the things that need done. It's another thing to manage those tasks effectively. So let's talk about it from least effective to most effective. If we look at this from least effective to most effective, the first least effective thing you could do is you do the work. Now, I shouldn't even have to put this on here. I have to talk about it because there's people that do this. I see it all the time and it blows my mind. Do not do the work yourself. I don't care what your skill set is. I don't care if you can do all of the work better than anybody else. Don't tell yourself that you're going to save money doing the work yourself. That is a lie because here's the thing. Your time is more valuable than manual labor rehabbing. That's being a contractor. Might as well go get paid to do that and work for somebody. Don't do that. Your job as a rehabber, as a flipper, is to do more projects and make more money. If you do it all yourself, you're going to do 1 deal a year, 2 deals a year, and it's going to take you forever, and you're going to be working for $4 an hour when you divide the math out. And I've seen a lot of people do it. I've taken some of my students that rehab, and they're like, I did all the work myself. I went over there every day after work. How long did it take you? Well, it took me 9 months to do the project. Okay, how much did you make? Well, I made $25,000, but I worked 800 hours. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's not worth it. Don't do that. Okay, the second least effective way to most effective way to rehab houses is to self-manage. So you're not doing the work yourself, but you're managing all of the subcontractors. And self-manage means you do every single one of these tasks. You're the one that does all of it. Now, if that's you, get ready for a full-time job managing. You are not building a business and you are not able to scale very much at all because it just takes so much time to do all of these different tasks. Okay, now the third level is one step up from self-managing. It's still self-managing, but it's with admin. It's with an admin helper. Now, this is typically going to be, I would just say, to get a good admin helper, about $20 an hour. And this can drastically reduce a lot of the workload here. Now, that admin is going to be doing all low-level tasks. Like, they're not deciding the design. They're not creating the scope, right? They're going to help get bids because that's a lower-level task. So you could tell your admin, hey, we need to get 3 plumber bids. They would get the bid, but then you would take those bids and decide and vet which ones. Admin can schedule a contractor. Hey, we're going to need you in 2 weeks on Friday. Can you be there? They can pay invoices. They can get lien waivers. Like, they can do a lot of the administrative stuff and save you a ton of work. The fourth level of managing a rehab is to hire a supervisor, or a foreman is another name for that title, that position. And a foreman now, this is going to be a full-time position. A really good foreman is going to be about $75,000 a year. You're looking for now someone highly specialized in home remodeling. Be careful not to get that foreman or supervisor hands-on. You don't want them, doing the demo because, hey, they're there and they're on payroll already. Keep them high level, keep them managing the process. Remember, it's not just about saving money or the cost of the rehab. It's about the speed of the rehab and the quality of the rehab. All three of those have to work together successfully. The full-time foreman, there's a tipping point where that makes sense. And until that tipping point in terms of volume of deals, volume of rehabs, isn't going to make a lot of sense. So for example, let's say that you're doing 15 projects in a year, and at $75,000, that's about $5,000 per rehab as your management cost to have that supervisor on payroll. Now, stick to the end of this video. I'm going to show you a hack strategy to pay for your supervisor, your management, without it coming out of pocket. So keep watching. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. With that full-time foreman, you're still going to be involved. You're not totally hands-off. You're still going to be involved in design. You're going to be helping make the scope of work. But as soon as you get past the design and the scope, that supervisor should start to step in now. You might even need to get some bids, but they're going to help you manage the contractors, create the timelines, keep the schedule on track, make sure the quality control is getting done, approve draws, and help do the punch list. Like, they're going to step in here once you get the project off the ground, and they're going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, which frees you up now to manage processes, manage rehabs, get more deals. This is how you scale. You got to move in this direction. Okay, the fifth way is to hire a GC. Number 5 is a general contractor. Now, the difference between a general contractor and a foreman, as far as their responsibilities, are not a whole lot different. The difference is a GC is subcontracted management, whereas a foreman or supervisor is in-house management. You hire them, they're on payroll, they're 100% exclusive to you. They just work for you doing your projects. Now, when does a GC make more sense than a foreman? This makes a lot of sense if you can't justify an hourly wage for your foreman. Let's say you're in the beginning and you don't want to self-manage or self-manage with admin, and you want to just outsource the work and only manage that GC. Well, you're going to pay a lot more. Like a GC, you're going to be paying maybe 15 to 20% more to outsource the GC to manage the entire project. So what does that mean? It just means you budget it in. When I'm doing rehabs in markets that I'm not established, I'm not doing volume in a market. Like, let's say I do a one-off rehab in a specific market, I typically will hire a GC. They have all the contacts, they have all the subcontractors, they're there, they're on the ground. And then I budget that higher price to get my rehab done. And now I just have to manage that GC. So this is a very effective way until you're scaling in a specific market and can go to the foreman. Okay, but again, make sure you're budgeting correctly. A GC is going to do one of two things. They're going to do cost plus, whatever our budget is on the rehab. It's going to depend on the market, the scope of work, the size of the project, but they're going to be charging a markup percentage of the total scope of work. Or they may just do a flat fee. Some GCs will do just a flat fee. Hey, I'll manage your whole project for 15 grand, 10 grand, whatever it is. And I understand what's involved, and I get paid for a flat fee to do the whole project. Okay, now let me show you a really cool strategy that I do. So what I typically try to do when I'm rehabbing is I'll use financing to rehab my projects. In fact, I typically borrow capital to purchase the property and rehab the property. And my goal is often to be 100% financed or funded on my projects, meaning I'm using 100% of other people's money, hard money or private money, to do my project. Now, one thing I'll do is, let's say that I'm at a level where I'm doing a lot of rehabs. Let's say 15 rehabs a year. So if I'm doing 15 rehabs a year, my supervisor now is a $75,000 a year salary. And on those 15 projects, I'm spending $5,000 per deal to pay for my foreman. But then what I do is I build it into my capital stack with my investors. So for example, if my rehab is going to cost me $50,000, then I bump my rehab to $55,000 and I borrow the extra $5,000 in my total capital to do the deal. So when I go to my hard money and private money, I'm just gonna make my rehab now $55,000. I have right in my budget a line item called management or supervision for $5,000. So in essence, I'm borrowing the money to pay the salary of my foreman up front. So when I do draws to my hard money lender, I'll do a supervision draw. Most hard money lenders will allow a line item for supervision. So then what I'll do is I'll draw against my rehab budget to pay my foreman. Doesn't cost me anything. I'm not paying for my foreman out of my cash flow in my business. I'm paying for it out of the borrowed funds to rehab the project. And this has allowed me to really scale quickly and not have budget constraints or cash flow constraints. Because when you rehab and flip, it's all money out until things sell, right? So managing your cash is huge. And I'll do this on big projects. I do this on my multi-million-dollar new construction. I'll do a new construction project where I might have $100,000 in supervision, and I'll build that into my budget. It's one of my line items for a draw from my lenders, and I draw against it to pay my supervisor. Now, if you think that's a brilliant hack strategy, leave a comment and say, thanks for sharing that tip, Jerry. You are a flipping genius. Okay, guys, how do you keep all of this organized? Well, there's a really cool tool I use called Flipster. And what's great about Flipster is it has everything you need to manage rehabs. It has tools for budgeting, for timeline, for management. There's a workflow, keeps everything super organized. There's digital contracts in there. There's also a paperless contractor management process, which tracks all of your bids, all of your invoices, all of your lien waivers, all cloud-based in the system, no paper at all. I absolutely love it. Flipster can help you save thousands of dollars just in automating and streamlining and staying organized in your rehabs. And there's even funding available in Flipster to get that 100% capital to do your deals. Now, to try Flipster on a free trial, just go to joinflipster.com. Now, I mentioned earlier that there are some requirements that I follow when I'm hiring contractors. I call these my best practices. It's going to allow you to make sure you get the right contractors for your deals that you're doing. So watch that video next, and I'll see you on the next video.